Welcome back to the deep dive, everyone. We are so energized about today's episode because we're ripping into a book that truly challenges almost everything we think we know about being a woman in the modern world. Jamie, this one, when I first started reading it, I was like, whoa, hold on a second here.
Oh, absolutely, Alex. And that's exactly the point of Monica Yates's book, Becoming Her, straight talk for healing, embodying, and radiating as your most powerful self. It's not just a book, it's a seismic shift in perspective. It really makes you pause and question whether the life we've been told to strive for is actually making us happy.
Right, because the title, Becoming Her, right off the bat made me think, okay, so is this another one of those books telling women how to be perfect? You know, like wake up at 5 a.m., journal, do yoga, make organic green smoothies, then conquer the corporate world, then bake sourdough, and still have perfect hair and a thriving sex life?
Exactly. And Monica addresses that head on. She starts by painting this picture of her, not as a perfect robot, but as someone who wakes up slowly, feels gratitude, sets her own priorities, and her day takes the shape of her inner space. Calm, collected, energy flowing freely. It's about being a magnet for high-quality individuals, not hardening yourself to repel lower frequencies.
Wait, hold on. Her day takes the shape of her inner space, calm and collected. That already sounds wildly different from the reality for so many women I know, myself included sometimes. It's like my inner space is a mosh pit and my day is just trying to survive it.
A mosh pit, I love that. And Monica argues that this mosh pit, this unprecedented level of burnout, anxiety, comparisonitis, and mental health issues we're seeing, isn't some complex new disease. Her explanation is blunt. Women are living against their natures. We've become slaves to social trends, focused on having more thanks to capitalism, and have disconnected from the meaning of life.
So you're saying that all this striving, this constant push, this girl boss mentality, it's actually making us sick physically and mentally because it's fundamentally misaligned with who we are as women.
Precisely. She doesn't pull punches. She says, we are the disease. That's a powerful statement. And she backs it up with her own story, which is incredibly vulnerable and relatable.
Yeah, her story, I found that really compelling. She talks about hating men, desperately wanting their love, the paradox of that. Growing up, from the outside, she looked privileged. Good education, parents together, food on the table. But then she drops this bombshell about how privileged can make us gaslight ourselves.
Oh, that hit me hard, Alex. The idea that we downplay our struggles because someone else has it worse. She even admits, I remember telling my mom once that I wished she and my dad had given me a rougher upbringing so I'd have a story to tell. How messed up is that? Wanting more trauma just to feel worthy of having a big, impactful life?
Mind blown, seriously. It's like we've internalized this victim to hero narrative so deeply that if our trauma isn't visible, if it's not dramatic enough, we feel like we don't deserve to heal or succeed. That's a profound observation about our society.
And Monica explains that her parents, while great, hadn't healed their own trauma. So she grew up with emotional unavailability, scarcity mindset around money, messed up programming about men and sex, and immense pressure to hustle and not cry. She became the ultimate cool girl. No emotion, perfect, laid back, go with the flow. As she puts it, an ice queen.
And the results weren't great, right? Horrible situations with men, binge drinking, punishing her body, wearing burnout as a badge of honor, despising anything feminine.
Absolutely. But underneath all that, she deeply craved being feminine, to be loved, taken care of, protected. She just thought that desire was anti-feminist and uncool, so she shoved it down.
So how did she regain her balance? Because that's the million-dollar question for so many women.
Well, her journey started with her own body. She was put on the pill for horrendous periods, lost her period entirely, lost weight dramatically, and no one could figure it out. Then she got into a relationship with a man who was very into feminine and masculine energies. He forced her, in a healthy way, into her feminine energy. And guess what? Her period came back. She realized men can actually influence women's cycles and hormones.
Wait, hold on. Men can influence women's cycles and hormones? That's fascinating and not something you hear every day.
Right? And for Monica, that was a huge light bulb moment. It kickstarted her obsession with understanding hormones and women's cycles, and she started sharing this radical information through her coaching business at a time when no one else was.
But then there was a huge turning point, a literal turning point with that snowboarding accident in 2017.
Oh, that was huge. 7 hours of surgery, wheelchair, OxyContin, her parents wiping her butt. It forced her to drop all her masculine armor and allow people to help her. Little Miss Independent couldn't exist anymore. It was dehumanizing, she says, but also her wake-up call to slow down, tune into her body, and listen. And then her masculine boyfriend dumped her during her most depressed period.
Ouch, talk about hitting rock bottom.
But it set her trajectory. She was trapped in her head and body, forced to confront all her deepest fears and traumas: sexual trauma, relationship trauma, daddy issues, money trauma, fear of failure, perfectionism. She realized she'd been lying to herself for years.
So that's the heal part of becoming her, confronting all that buried stuff.
Exactly. And she realized if she was going through it, countless other women were too. She developed her signature programs, even started channeling insights for clients, which she describes as someone else putting words in her mouth. She's now an empoweredly submissive feminist, a mix of strength and surrender, a choice, not a rule.
Okay, empoweredly submissive feminist. That's a phrase designed to raise eyebrows. And I can hear some listeners out there saying, wait, what? Submissive? Isn't that what we fought against?
Absolutely. And Monica acknowledges that this view is slightly politically incorrect for some. But she argues that feminism in its purest form was about women claiming their space, not waging a battle for dominance. Somewhere along the way, she contends, men got dropped from the equality equation. Empowerment morphed into a story where women are always center stage, and it came with a serious downside for men.
Yeah, she talks about men lacking purpose, making less money, being less educated, physically weaker, and worse at intimate relationships. And women are fed up carrying the burden of doing it all, which expresses itself as contempt for men. That's a cycle nobody wins in.
It's a vicious cycle. She says women cutting men down or telling them to grow some balls doesn't make them the man you want them to be. It just strips them of their masculinity, and then women end up carrying the weight of both roles.
Which brings us back to the burnout, right? The World Happiness Report shows a decline in well-being for both genders, especially younger generations. Dr. James Tooley's research, for example, suggests professional women are unhappier because they prioritize jobs over feminine desires like creating a loving home.
And Monica is clear. She's not saying abandon your career and be a housewife. She loves her job. But she's saying the complete rejection of our feminine nature will not create greater happiness, despite what radical feminism might tell us.
And then there's the men's side, that impossible checklist society hands them. Be an emotionally available dad, work 60 hours, be a gentleman, be assertive but not a bully, support your partner's dreams, but don't complain about feeling unappreciated. It's like a game where the rules change every 5 seconds.
Exactly. They're told to do more, be better, don't mess up, all while pretending they're okay because they're men and they're not supposed to complain. The result? Sky-high suicide rates for men, dropping out of college, losing the point of striving to be a provider when their efforts are dismissed.
So it's not about men versus women. It's about both genders being stuck in this system that's not serving anyone.
That's her core argument. Healthy masculinity is essential for both men and women. When men feel grounded, purposeful, and appreciated, women can feel safe, supported, and cherished. But we've twisted ourselves in knots doing the opposite of what makes us happy.
And this leads us to what she calls the catch-22 for high-achieving women. They're dominating in their lives, but they also want a man who's even more dominant. And they're often unaware of how their own actions, energy, and yes, even emasculation contribute to the problem.
This is a really sensitive point for many, but she states it plainly. Masculinity is fragile for men, not because they're pathetic, but because it's earned, and it can be taken away quickly. If a man tries to lead and society or his partner calls him too dominating, or she makes snarky comments or doesn't let him pay the bill, he's going to become a doormat or he'll leave. And if he becomes a doormat, the woman loses respect and resents him anyway.
So the anger women carry, that grandma's china of unhealed trauma passed down generations, it's showing up in our present relationships, tearing men down and actually making us more exhausted and disconnected.
Yep, she says healing is the only way out of that anger, projection, and burnout loop. It's about asking hard questions. Why do I feel the need to control everything? Why am I threatened by softness? Why am I so angry? And then actually being real with yourself, ego aside.
And she says healing can be sexy, empowering, and fun. That's a twist. Usually you hear about healing as this dark, painful, deep work.
It is hard work, but the outcome, the freedom from resentment, the peace, the joy, the lightness, that's the reward. And when you heal, everything around you shifts, including how your romantic partner shows up. She emphasizes that men want to give, provide, and protect. They are turned on by softness, playfulness, nurturing. They love our emotions. It's an honor for them, and we get to receive.
So it's not about being someone else's perfect. It's about coming home to your authentic self, not changing yourself, but becoming the truest version of you.
Exactly. And this leads her to challenge the "I'm an independent woman and I don't